My name is Isabella Harper. I'm 29 years old. Nearly 3 years ago, I moved out of my parents' house in Ohio to start an independent life in Austin, Texas, a city I had only known through photos and maps. My apartment isn't big, but it's my own world, where everything belongs to me. From the wall art to the faux flower vase on the kitchen table, I work as a content editor at a digital media company. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays my rent, lets me buy what I need, and sometimes treat myself to a decent meal after a 10-hour workday. That kind of freedom didn't come easy, especially when you grow up in a family where every decision had to be run by mom. That morning, I woke up later than usual. Outside, a light rain tapped against the window pane in a soft rhythm that whispered winter was on its way. I made myself an iced coffee and settled onto the sofa. When I checked my phone, I saw 9 missed calls, all from my mom, Linda Harper, all within the last 45 minutes. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and sighed. I knew this was coming. Every year, as Christmas approaches, my mom becomes enthusiastic in the worst way, not about the holiday spirit, but about assigning roles, as if the whole event were a massive logistics operation and she was the chief coordinator. I set my phone down and took a sip of watered-down coffee. It tasted dull. Hesitating, I reopened our message thread. Her last text was from early last month. "Isabella, are you coming home for a few days over Christmas? Try to take time off early to help out." I hadn't replied. I knew exactly what I was avoiding. I didn't want to hear that familiar voice, half guilt, half command. I had a gut feeling this time she had something planned, and I was on the list of executors. Every year on December 24th, my family hosts a big gathering. Relatives from all over, food, laughter, long hugs, and me, always assigned to babysit. That script hasn't changed in over a decade. While the aunts and uncles raise wine glasses and swap stories at full volume, I, the daughter who's not too busy, get stuck watching 6 kids ages 3 to 12 like it's my natural role. When I was younger, I thought maybe it's because I'm the oldest. But now, I'm nearly 30, with a job, deadlines, and a life of my own. I'm no longer the obedient girl who always nods. And honestly, I'm tired of being the responsible one. My phone buzzed again. Mom, of course. I stared at the screen. My finger hovered over decline, but then paused. "Just get it over with," I muttered. "Whatever it is, let's hear it." I took a deep breath and answered. Her voice came through, sugary with a familiar edge of blame, like she was always right and I just needed to fall in line. Finally, I've been calling so much my fingers gone numb. I closed my eyes, holding steady. "I was working, Mom. When you call nonstop like that, it makes me think something's wrong." It is important. I called to share some good news. Our family, listen closely, is about to have a one-of-a-kind Christmas vacation. Her tone stretched like she was hosting a reality show reveal. I didn't respond, just furrowed my brow. "Aunt Arlene just booked a cruise around the Bahamas for everyone," she continued excitedly. "From December 23rd to New Year's Day, a full week. Blue seas, golden sun, cocktails in hand." I raised an eyebrow, uneasy. "Everyone, as in who exactly?" "Your dad and me, your aunts and uncles, Aunt Abby, Uncle Tom, and your cousins. Everyone's going. It's going to be unforgettable." "So, what about me?" Mom hesitated. Then she said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You'll be staying behind to watch the kids. Who else would?" I shot up from the sofa, heart racing. "Wait, you're telling me I'm supposed to stay and babysit while everyone else goes on a tropical vacation?" "You don't have any plans," she said quickly. "And Andrew, Zoe, and Mason aren't old enough for the cruise. Zoe gets seasick, doctor's orders." I stood frozen. Andrew is 9, Zoe 6, and Mason not even 3. "So you want me to stay home alone with 3 kids? For the entire Christmas week?" "Don't make it sound like we're abandoning you," she said, a little defensive. "You're capable. The kids love you, and since you don't have children of your own yet, this will be a good experience. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to shout. This is Christmas, Mom. I have plans with friends. I have end-of-year deadlines, and I already told you I'm not going to be the unpaid babysitter again. There was a short silence on the line, then a heavy sigh. You always overreact. We're family. Family helps each other. I swallowed hard. This isn't helping. This is assigning. You never really ask, you decide, then expect me to go along. You act like we're kidnapping you, she scoffed. It's just 1 week, and the tickets are non-refundable. You know that. I froze. Wait, you already booked everything? So this was all decided long ago, and you didn't even ask me? We assumed you'd say yes, you always do. Since you were a kid, you've always been dependable. I closed my eyes. Not this time. Not anymore. Mom, I'm saying no. I'm not babysitting. Your vacation is not my responsibility. Isabella, her voice jumped an octave. You're ruining everything. Who's going to watch the kids? You're just going to leave them? No, I'm just not going to let myself be used anymore. The other end went quiet. Then her voice dropped, sharp. Fine. If you're going to be selfish, then don't come home. Your father will call you later. I set the phone down, chest tight. My emotions swirled. Anger, hurt, but also a strange, unexpected relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't defaulting to being the one who stays. I had said no. I didn't know what would come next, but in that moment, I knew I was no longer the girl being led. I was a woman standing on her own. I thought I had made my point clear, firm. Despite Mom's guilt trips and threats, I stood my ground. I wouldn't babysit. But a few days later, on Christmas Eve night, I got a call from Dad, who usually stayed out of it. Isabella, he said in his deep, calm voice, your mom went a little overboard. I admit that. But the kids are looking forward to seeing you. You don't need to stay long. Just drop by in the morning, give them their gifts. We're flying out in the afternoon. I hesitated. I was still angry, but I didn't want to wage war forever. Just the morning, Dad. I'll be there around 11 a.m., give the presents, then leave. Okay, thank you, he said. Short. No fuss. I spent all Christmas Eve wrapping gifts. A comic book set for Andrew, a building kit for Zoe, and a musical teddy bear for Mason. Despite everything, I wanted them to smile. It wasn't their fault. The next morning, I drove through the foggy back roads of suburban Columbus, Ohio. My family's house looked the same. Neatly trimmed lawn, Christmas lights twinkling along the roof, and a peaceful atmosphere that now felt painfully fake. But the first thing that gave me a bad feeling was the empty drive. No car from my parents, no sign of Aunt Darlene's SUV, not a single adult in sight. I rushed to the front door, arms full of gifts. Before I could even ring the bell, the door swung open and Zoe came running out, her eyes bright. Aunt Bella, you came. Mom said you'd stay with us. My heart sank. Wait a minute, Zoe. Where's your mom? They may already left. Their flight was at 8 a.m. They left breakfast on the table for us and you. I stood frozen. A chill crept down my spine. I had been set up. Andrew and little Mason came running too, beaming. Did you bring presents? Will you play board games with us? I forced a smile. Of course I did. Let's go inside. I didn't want the kids to feel anything was wrong. As furious as I was, they weren't the ones who had manipulated me. While they tore into their gifts, I scanned the living room. Everything was clean and orderly. On the kitchen counter sat a handwritten note. Isabella, we knew you'd come. Breakfast is ready. The chore list is posted on the fridge. Make sure Mason goes to bed by 7 p.m. and Andrew and Zoe by 8:30. Emergency numbers are next to the phone. Love. I don't remember when I crumpled the paper. I only remember standing there, hands shaking, my chest tight with the weight of sheer disregard. I walked into the kitchen and grabbed my phone. 1, 2, Finally, on the sixth ring, she picked up. Oh, good, you made it. Are the kids doing okay? What were you thinking? I asked, each word sharp. I told you, clearly, I wasn't babysitting. And you just left me with all three kids? Isabella, don't exaggerate. You're already there. The kids adore you. You're great at this. This is child abandonment. Do you understand that? What if I hadn't come? Did you even think about that? You're not going to make a big deal out of this. You're always the responsible one. I took a long breath. If you're not back in 1 hour, I will report this as child neglect to the police. Silence. Then hurried breathing on the other end. Isabella, please, we're still at the airport. We haven't boarded yet. Let me get your father. No negotiation. 1 hour. I hung up. My heart pounded in my chest. The kids kept giggling by the Christmas tree. 45 minutes later, I heard the sound of cars pulling up outside. A moment after that, my mom, dad, Aunt Arlene, and Uncle Tom came through the door, all pale as ghosts. Zoe squealed, "Mom's back!" I stood up and grabbed my coat. My mom approached, voice quieter now. "You didn't need to make this such a big deal." I looked her dead in the eye. "I'm not your convenient backup plan. Don't ever treat me like that again." I bent down, kissed each of the kids on the forehead, then walked straight out the door. Behind me, raised voices started building, my father's tones sterner than I'd heard in years. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew I had done the right thing, drawing a line that should have been drawn long ago. The next morning, I woke up later than usual. Pale sunlight crept through the curtains. The anger still lingered, but so did something else. Relief. For once, my family had to come back for me, not just the kids. I made coffee and picked up my phone as usual. 57 Facebook notifications? Unusual. When I opened the app, the first thing that appeared was a public post from my mom. Linda Harper posted the night before, along with a photo of an empty Christmas tree. A sad Christmas. 3 sweet kids spent the morning asking, "Why didn't she come?" It hurts when family is no longer a priority. We hoped, we prepared, but apparently some people care more about personal boundaries than family. I never thought I'd have to beg for a holiday gathering, but maybe this generation thinks differently. Instantly, I saw a flood of comments from relatives, people who had no idea what really happened yet had plenty to say. "Shame on her, Linda. If I had a daughter like that, I'd be embarrassed. Kids come first. Can't she just give them a week? Family is everything. Sad that some people don't get that." It felt like a punch to the stomach. She hadn't named me, but everyone knew. The story had been twisted, the truth erased, and now I was the villain who ruined Christmas. I called my mom. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. And then I understood. She was ignoring me. Deliberately. I opened my laptop, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from rage. I typed out a new post. No insults, no accusations, just truth. Clear, undeniable. I didn't plan to share private matters here, but after seeing the narrative being twisted and judgment poured from people who weren't there, I need to clarify. Yesterday, I went to my parents' house as promised, just for the morning to drop off gifts for the kids. When I arrived, the entire family had already left, leaving 3 young children unsupervised. This after I had clearly declined to babysit for the entire week. I had to threaten to call the police before they returned. I am not irresponsible, but I will no longer be the silent one who's expected to carry the load while receiving zero respect in return. Family should not be built on expectations alone. Love doesn't excuse manipulation. I hit post. Within an hour, the comments started rolling in. First from friends, the ones who actually knew me. "I've seen you go through this for years. It's about time you spoke up. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. You handled this calmly and clearly. People need to read every word." Then came the private messages. From a few cousins, some distant relatives, the ones who had stayed quiet before, now beginning to see things clearly. A message from my dad's sister. My aunt was the first. Isabella, I had no idea things were like this. Your mom shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry for misjudging you. Then came a comment under my post from the most unexpected person. My grandmother, Evelyn Harper, who had always supported my mother without question. Linda, you need to talk to Isabella again. She may be your daughter, but she's also an adult. You can't force her to do something without asking. My eyes stung as I stared at the screen. I never expected anyone to take my side, but when someone has the courage to acknowledge the truth, it softens something inside you. Still, I knew this was just the beginning of the storm. And this time, I was ready to face it. With my voice and my dignity. After my public post, it seemed like the storm had calmed, but I had underestimated the resistance of those used to being in control. The next morning, while I was working remotely, my phone rang non-stop. Messages poured in from friends, former coworkers, and even names I didn't recognize. Responses full of support, sympathy, even gratitude. "Thank you for speaking up," read one message from a woman I didn't know. "I've been used by my family the same way, but I never had the courage to say it out loud." I scrolled quickly through Facebook. My post had been shared more than 2,000 times, along with captions like, "Not everyone has to sacrifice for family, especially when they're being disrespected. Family is not an excuse to abuse kindness." Several personal blogs and mental health pages began reposting the story, citing me properly. A small podcast even shared my experience in their segment titled "Family Boundaries When Saying Enough is Enough." I wasn't chasing attention, but clearly I had touched something deeply familiar and long suppressed in many people. However, not everyone stayed quiet. That afternoon, my mother, Linda Harper, posted again on her profile, this time with an old photo of me hugging Zoe from last year. Some people grow up with love, care, and support from their family, only to turn around and betray the very people who raised them. Instead of handling things privately, they broadcast family matters for the world to judge. We're not perfect, but at least we don't expose our loved ones for public ridicule. Her words cut like glass. But what really stung were the comments. Aunt Abigail, my mom's younger sister, wrote, "I've never seen anyone as ungrateful as Isabella. She's always been the odd one out. Now we know why." Uncle Philip, Abigail's husband, added, "Did anyone even think about Andrew, Zoe, and Mason's feelings, or is this just about playing victim for attention?" Then came my dad's comment. Just one line, but it hit like a slap. "Being an adult doesn't mean turning your back on family. I'm disappointed." Reading those words felt like the air had been sucked from my lungs. Not one of them had messaged me privately. Not one asked how I felt during any of this. All they wanted was for me to stay silent, so things could keep going the way they always had. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, grip tightening. I didn't cry. Not this time. Then, ping, a message from my grandmother, Evelyn Harper. "Isabella, can you give me a call?" I called immediately. "Are you okay?" Her voice was as gentle as it had been when I was sick as a child. "I'm okay, but they're making me feel like I'm the monster." "We know the truth. Your grandfather and I have seen how they've treated you over the years. No one has the right to expect you to sacrifice endlessly." I said nothing. Just hearing that was enough to ease the weight in my chest. "We'll talk to them, but you need to be prepared. They won't back down easily. They're used to controlling people, especially you." And she was right. The attacks escalated. A fake Facebook account, identity unknown, started posting old photos of me from high school with captions like, "She's always been selfish," and "Watch out for family backstabbers." I reported the account and Facebook quickly removed it, but the damage lingered. A few distant relatives messaged me coldly. "If you still want to be part of this family, you better take that post down. No one wants their kids learning from a rebel like you, Isabella." I closed my laptop, walked out to the balcony. The sky was foggy, but the cold wind cleared my head. I remembered what Gina, my best friend, had told me the week before. Sometimes, to have peace, you have to lose a few people. And honestly, they were never really with you to begin with. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and typed the first line. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect, and I won't apologize for asking for it. That evening, I received a message from my grandfather, Walter Jenkins, a quiet man, but the one I respected most in my family. Zella, your grandma and I have seen everything. If you want to take this further, we support you. Don't let people think they can treat you this way and get away with it. I sat there for a long time, phone on my lap, heart heavy. I had never thought I'd sue my own family. But after days of insults, distortion, and public shaming, one thing became crystal clear. I didn't do anything wrong, and I wasn't going to stay silent while they rewrote the story. The next morning, I scheduled a consultation at a law office in downtown Austin. My attorney, Vanessa Fields, was a woman in her 40s with piercing eyes and a calm, lake-like voice. After I laid out the entire situation, she simply nodded and opened her laptop. "Isabella," she said, "I'll be direct. This is no longer a family dispute. This is public defamation and ongoing psychological harassment, especially through social media. If you're ready, we'll send a formal cease and desist letter to Linda Harper and the others involved. If they persist, we proceed with a lawsuit." I nodded without hesitation. I don't want to ruin anyone, but I need them to understand I'm not the same girl who kept quiet anymore. The following week, official legal warnings were sent to my mother, my father, Thomas Harper, Aunt Abigail, and Uncle Philip. The letter demanded they remove all defamatory content about me from social media, issue a public apology, commit to no further threats, pressure, or unwanted contact. Their response? A new post from my mother, this time more aggressive in tone. "My daughter's been brainwashed by someone, and now she wants to sue her own parents. It's disgraceful." Attached were cruel comments from old acquaintances, extended family members, and even the neighbor who used to greet me every morning. Attorney Vanessa looked at me and shook her head. "We're moving forward with the lawsuit." The case was filed in Travis County Court just 2 days later, with evidence including screenshots of defamatory posts and comments, abusive messages from relatives, historic video footage from my door camera showing the day I left after being tricked into babysitting. The case was officially accepted by the court. My parents hired their own attorney. They tried to claim it was just emotional expression, that Isabella overreacted, and that every family has misunderstandings. But in court, the truth was undeniable, especially when my grandparents, Walter and Evelyn, testified. They confirmed that for years I had always been assigned roles, overlooked and burdened with responsibilities no one else wanted, all without ever being asked how I felt. On the day the verdict was announced, I sat quietly in the courtroom, my heart pounding like a drum. When the judge, a silver-haired man with a voice like a clear bell, spoke, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. After reviewing all evidence and testimonies, the court rules: Linda Harper, Thomas Harper, Abigail Smith, and Philip Smith are guilty of defamation, false statements, causing reputational harm, and severe psychological harassment against Isabella Harper. The defendants are ordered to remove all false content from public platforms, issue a public apology within 7 days, pay damages for emotional distress as determined by law, abide by a 2-year no-contact order with Isabella Harper. I didn't smile. I just let out a long breath, as if I had finally surfaced after decades underwater. As I exited the courthouse, my grandfather placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing. They may never change, but you protected yourself. And that is enough." I looked up at the pale gray sky. It wasn't a glorious new beginning, but it was the beginning of freedom. The ruling came less than 2 weeks ago, but the aftermath spread like wildfire. First was my father, Thomas Harper. A senior manager in the finance department at a real estate firm in Columbus, he had always taken pride in his model family man reputation. But when the story went viral, accompanied by court records, his name didn't just appear in legal documents. It appeared in a local news article titled, "When Family Reputations Fall, Abuse of Power at Home." Less than a month later, he was forced into early retirement under the reasoning of protecting the company's image. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't regret it either. Reputation was the very thing he once used to suppress me. Now it had come back to confront him. Next was my mother, Linda Harper. She had been a prominent face in the local elementary school PTA, serving as vice president for nearly 7 years. But once the story became public, anonymous letters flooded the school board. Many parents voiced concern over a woman convicted of psychological harassment, holding any decision-making power in an educational environment. An emergency meeting was held, and just as I expected, my mother was quietly asked to step down. That, for her, was worse than losing money. She lost her status, her influence, her social standing that she had long treated as a weapon. Then came Aunt Abigail and Uncle Philip, owners of the small bakery Sweet Haven on Brighton Avenue. Once beloved for their traditional family vibe, their cruel remarks began circulating online, complete with real names and quotes from court records. A Yelp review surfaced. "I used to love this bakery, but after learning they use social media to publicly bully their niece, the sweetness is gone." Within 3 months, sales dropped by more than 40%. By the following spring, they put up a for lease sign and moved into a rundown apartment in the West Side suburbs. I didn't feel triumphant, but I felt that justice had arrived, in a quiet, undeniable way. Throughout all of it, I stayed in touch with my grandparents, the only ones in my family who never turned their backs on me. I called them weekly over video. They never needed to say much. Their knowing eyes and unwavering belief were enough. As for the kids, Andrew, Zoe, and Mason, I kept sending birthday gifts, Christmas cards, and the occasional short email. I couldn't interfere with how they were being raised, but I wanted them to know there was one adult in the family who once stood up for what was right. The biggest surprise came from Zoe, who had just turned 16 that year. She sent me a long message on my birthday. "Aunt Bella, when we were little, we didn't understand, but I do now. You were the only one who ever listened to me. Even if my parents don't allow it, I'll find a way to see you. I want to learn to be strong like you." 3 months later, Zoe decided to move in with me to prepare for college entrance exams. Her mom, Aunt Abigail, furiously objected, but couldn't stop her daughter anymore. Zoe had chosen light over silence. My apartment now echoed with more laughter, occasional messes, late-night study sessions, and even some teen tears. But I had never felt more whole. I lost many things in this battle. Relatives, surface-level peace, fake holiday dinners. But I reclaimed something far more precious. My voice, the right to live according to my own values, and a family, one I chose myself. 10 years have passed. December in Austin still brings no snow, just a cold breeze whispering through bare tree branches in front of the little wooden house that Daniel Monroe, my husband, and I built with love and resilience. I'm 39 now, the creative director at a digital media company. I love my job and built my career step by step from my days as a junior editor, right after I first left my parents' home. My career path hasn't been linear, but every step has been mine to take, not someone else's design. Daniel, the most patient man I've ever known, is a social science researcher. He understands the value of boundaries and inner freedom, things I spent years learning how to protect. And there's Zoe, now a senior in psychology, independent and strong. She still visits every Christmas without fail. She calls me Aunt Bella, but we both know our bond is a different kind of family, one rooted not in blood, but in respect and understanding. My life today isn't a fairy tale, but it is real peace, and to me, that's more precious than any blood tie that ever drained me. I stayed in touch with my grandparents until their final years. Grandpa Walter passed away when I was 36. In our last conversation, his voice still carried that familiar warmth. You've lived true to yourself. Don't let anyone make you think that's wrong. I keep his photo by the window near my desk, a quiet reminder that I've never been alone. As for my parents, Thomas and Linda, we haven't spoken in nearly 7 years. They moved out of the old neighborhood and now live in a small rural home. Aunt Abigail and Uncle Philip also relocated to Indiana, opening a new bakery, this time without the name Sweet Haven. Every so often I hear through the grapevine that they complain I tore the family apart. Occasionally they send a short email saying, "Sorry if we hurt you," but never once have they addressed what they actually did. I don't reply. Not out of hatred, but because I understand that forgiveness requires the courage to face the truth. And I had to forgive myself first. That was enough. I've learned that past wounds don't disappear, but they no longer control me. Sometimes, on quiet nights, when Daniel and our little daughter Elena, now 3 years old, are fast asleep, I step out onto the balcony with a warm cup of tea and look at the stars. I think about those Christmases long ago, when I held a pillow in my room, listening to laughter downstairs, too afraid to speak up for fear of being called selfish. I think about that cold morning 10 years ago, when I held the phone with trembling hands, called my mother, and for the first time, dared to say no. I think about the lesson I learned through pain. Family, without respect, becomes a chain, and silence isn't love, it's surrender. I share this story not for revenge, but for anyone who has ever felt like the only one setting boundaries, the only one who felt different in a controlling family. You are not wrong. You have the right to live a life that doesn't require constant sacrifice. You have the right to speak up, walk away, and begin again, whether alone or not. Because freedom isn't something you're given, it's something you claim by stepping away from what once held you back. Isabella Harper's story isn't just about standing up against family pressure. It's a powerful reminder that setting personal boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary, even when those who hurt you are the ones closest to you. In today's world, where many still feel bound by the idea of sacrificing for family, her story reminds us that true love must include respect. Saying no doesn't make you the villain. It helps you hold on to yourself and live a life that's truly your own. What do you think about Isabella's decision? Was she too strong, or was it exactly what she needed to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about life and family.